Ok, bene, allora, so welcome to everybody. We are on our third meeting on Anthropocene of this part of the year. I want to thank Elisa Bricco, who is here with us and who has been the inventor, the promoter of this series of meetings on such an important theme for nowadays. And we have, for the first time in this year, for sure, not to essayists, but to artists, to one artist and one curator, two people very much inside the world of art, and two very young people. So we are used to say in Italy that Italy is not a country for young persons, so that is against them. But I don't want to say that in Poland it is completely different, but seeing you, we must admit that it's better than in Italy from this point of view, at least, because I don't know, I personally do not know any so young and successful curator as Jakub, and so young and so active, so already important artist as Diana, who has already, I would say, a first place and the Polish visual art panorama. Am I right? Yes, I am. I answer by myself. And so I'll just read by now what was written in the reclam of this meeting, but maybe it's nice to hear it again. Who are our distinguished guests? Diana Lelonek is an artist based in Warsaw, Poland. She graduated from the Department of Photography at the University of Art in Poznan. She has a PhD at interdisciplinary PhD studies of the University of Art in Poznan. Currently, she's running the Artistic Research Studio at the Artistic Research and Curatorial Studies Department, Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. Diana Lelonek explores relationships between humans and other species. Her projects are critical responses to the processes of overproduction, unlimited growth, and our approach to the environment. Later, if there will be a possibility, I'll ask Diana to say something also regarding animals, that because generally, if I'm not mistaken, Diana, the main persons of your art are humans and the botanical existence. And well, if you would like to, but I don't want to steal Jakub's place because he's the one devoted to.
But I recently I made a project about storks,
Okay.
Birds.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think my projects we can divide between plants, geological topics, and ornithology.
Okay. Okay, great. So maybe later, if you like, you could show something about it. And Diana uses photography, living matter, and found objects, creating work that is interdisciplinary and often appears at the interface of art and science, which is the most, maybe I want to say important, the most, how to say, exciting interface of nowadays art, this connection, this interconnection between art and science. And Diana has a lot of participations to Biennale festivals, group shows, artistic residence, and so on and so on. I won't mention them all. And I passed it to Jakub. Jakub Gawkowski is a curator and art historian who works at the Modern Art Department of the Museum of Art in Łódź. This is the longest living contemporary art museum in the world, and it's quite an important place. And he has been the curator and co-curator of several exhibitions. The latest one is called "The Heart Will Open Its Mouth," and was inaugurated just, I think, a few days ago, Jakub, on the
late October it was opened.
Okay, great. And its conception is quite interesting. It unites the work of the great painter and poet Erna Rosenstein, a Jewish artist who has depicted also, among others, the Shoah, the Holocaust, whom she was a testimony while she was a child, and Aubrey Williams, who is
Was he died in 1990?
Okay, sorry, I should have known, but and he was from help me, Jakub, for the Caribbean.
Yeah, from the Caribbean, from the British Guyana.
Okay, and so this is quite what Jakub has done is quite a very modern approach to visual art that on the following the intuition of Michael Rothberg of the possibility of the multi-directional memory opens the figuration of the Holocaust to the figuration of colonial countries and so on, and on the other way around, colonial countries that are intersected, whose figuration is intersected with the figuration of the Holocaust. And Jakub graduated from the history department of the Central European University in Budapest, and was a fellow of the European Holocaust Research Infrastructure and of the Museum's Lab program. Now it's up to you, and I leave you the scene.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Laura. It's a great pleasure, and thank you so much for this invitation. So I guess I would give a couple of sentences of an introduction, but also just to have this intro. So me and Diana, we imagine it as a kind of a hybrid, as everything is that we do together. So like a hybrid in between the artist talk and a conversation and the presentation. So we would like to briefly introduce you to some of the projects that we did together, but also to some of the projects that Diana has been conducting since a couple of years already, because it's obviously a very interesting in a multidisciplinary practice that requires some further exploration and some further theoretical also framing. And I consider myself quite lucky because I've been collaborating with Diana for a couple of years already. So I think that the first project that we did together was 2018. And it was actually one of the first exhibitions that I ever did was the exhibition in the CCA, the Center for Contemporary Art, Veronica in Bytom. I'm very sorry, there's my dog in the background, if you can hear him, but he has quite a temper, but he's doing okay. So yeah, sorry in advance.
You may participate to the meeting.
Exactly, but somehow it fits into the human-non-human relations that we are going to be discussing in the next minute. So this exhibition that we did together with Diana took place in Bytom, in the post-industrial city in southern Poland. And what was happening in 2019, December 2019 in Poland was the United Nations Climate Change Summit. So the COP24, I think was the number, right? So you had this huge endeavor, the United Nations organizing the panel discussions, conference, everything being like really kind of official and kind of full of hypocrisy also, because you have this climate change discussion, this big politics happening in the region that has been severely damaged by the coal mining, by the really nasty and aggressive anti-ecological politics. So my idea for the exhibition, which was called The Most Beautiful Catastrophe, was to organize a show that would kind of offer an alternative voice to this big political event happening in Silesia. So I invited a number of artists from Poland, but also Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. It was a Central European regional exhibition to explore and to kind of elaborate on the relations between the politics, activism, visual arts, especially in this post-industrial region of Upper Silesia. And the obvious choice for the artist to invite, as it was back then and as it would be today, surely, was to invite Diana Lelonek, who is one of the key artists, or the key artist actually from the Polish scene, consistently exploring the themes of ecology, environmental destruction, but also environmental degrowth, let's say, right? So I started this conversation with Diana in 2018 when I invited her to the show, and then ever since we've been having this discussion over and over. And in that exhibition in 2018, Diana presented two of her projects, one of them being the Center for Living Things, which I think is maybe the most well-known project that Diana did. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Diana, but I think it's the longest one in a way, right? That has been going on and on for years. And I think this is also something very special. Later, when Diana will be speaking about it, we can come back to it. But I think it's also really interesting how many projects that Diana is doing. It's not only about finishing the artwork and kind of having it as a finished product in a gallery, but also how some of these projects that Diana has been doing are really evolving over time and have different iterations. And those are not really artworks; those are like institutes, right? Or some small kind of spaces, some really artistic organisms, really, that are evolving over time. So I think it's really interesting to also maybe pay some attention to that. Before I will ask Diana to introduce maybe those two projects that are some of the key realizations that she did. I think during the next half an hour or so, let's say 40 minutes, we can discuss a number of projects by Diana, but also we would like to focus on a couple of different themes. So we would like to use this occasion and discussing certain projects and certain artworks and certain exhibitions also to reflect closely on the relationship between the human and non-human, obviously, the relation between the individual and the society in times of the Anthropocene, and how the individual agency and the individual personality fits into the picture here. But speaking about the Upper Silesia in Poland, we would also like to elaborate this discussion maybe and to briefly speak about this and other post-industrial regions, right? So how actually work of Diana is really useful into imagining, or like helping us to imagine what can we do with these regions that are post-industrial, that are left after decades of extractivist economy, basically. So this would be another theme that we would like to address in this meeting today. And last but not least, I think what is really crucial and what Diana is really addressing is her work is the notion of art institutions and artistic production facing the climate crisis, right? So how can we go beyond, let's say, making the artworks and making the exhibitions about certain social problems or ecological problems or political problems, but how can we, let's say, try to change the methods of production also in order to accommodate to this new ever-changing condition, or how can we even work in a way to challenge the existing conditions that of course are part of a system of overproduction, because as we all know, our world is a fantastic thing, but of course it also has many problems with it, and overproduction is one of them, or the way that it really is based on this kind of constant need of production, new works and new exhibitions, and I think it's the last part of the meeting, when we'll be discussing some of the projects of Diana, would be a good chance to also reflect on that. So how do we change the world, and how do we change the art institutions? And it's a very ambitious question, but I don't think that we can find an answer to all of them, but at least we can maybe point to some important issues. So this being said, yeah, I would like to maybe give floor to you, Diana, and to ask you to maybe start with the Center for Living Things, because in my opinion, this is the project that is an iconic work of yours in a way, and I'm also very proud to say that the two of the photographs from this project just entered the collection of Muzeum Sztuki this year. So this is like a really important culmination of a center collaboration. And the Center for Living Things, I think it's a very interesting project and very good way to start speak about Diana's practice for several reasons. One of them being the fact that it's sort of it starts somewhere in photography, right? So it starts from the photographic picture, but then the project really is so much bigger than that. And it's not only about the photograph that you see, but it's also about the long-term project and about the background and how things come into being, and it's about sustaining something long-term. And it's and the other reason would be also how it's connected, as every other project of Diana, to the idea of science, scientific expertise, but also kind of negotiating and renegotiating the categories of science, right? The categories of a man-made science, or like human-centered science. So I think that would be a very interesting departure point. So the floor is yours, Diana.
Thank you, Kuba, for this introduction. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pictures from this project. This is a very long-term project. I started this research in, I think it was like at the end of 2016. So this is also my PhD project, but almost every time when I show it, it looks completely different. And for example, right now in Basel, in Switzerland, I made an exhibition, but I created a waste garden. So this is outside the gallery. And this is also a new way how I can show it. But okay, I need to share a screen. And for me in this project, it's also very important that I not only use the gallery spaces, the white cube, but I also, my idea was to go outside from this artistic bubble. So in this project, I also had a collaboration with real research institution, the Botanical Garden. And I also had an idea to create a new department in that garden dedicated to this kind of post-waste habitats. But let's start from the beginning. Kuba mentioned that where I am. I need to go down. That I started from photography, and this is true because I finished photography. My studies, my BA and MA, I am degreed from photography. So this medium is very important, and I use it really often. But also this project, when I started to make this research, the first idea was to make pictures, but really quickly I started to think that, okay, it's not enough. Like, this is not enough to just finish this project as a photography series. That this problem is more complex and there is a lot of plots. So I need to make something more. And then the idea of this research center. So this is like, you know, in art, you can do almost everything is possible. So when you decide that I would like to have my own research center, you can have your own research center. So I decided that I would like to start a Center for Living Things. So this is like kind of artistic project, but the idea was to create it as something real. But what exactly Center for Living Things do? This is very simple. So things that you can see here on these all pictures are waste I found at illegal waste dumping sites in forests, mostly in forests, but also in meadows, in wetlands, in different kind of habitats. So they are things that people left at illegal dumping sites. So I started to think, what happened later with these things? What kind of relations, like mutual relations in between these objects and plants happened? Not only plants, but plants, mosses, fungi, bacteria, molds, some insects. So I decided to make the research. I just found about these multi-layer relations, like, I don't know, what kind of material, what is the influence of, I don't know, plastic or textiles or electronical waste, and how different species try to adapt this waste, and how non-human beings started to looking for a new function for these objects, because they are not things anymore, because they are not belong to humans. And, you know, like, thing is usually a tool in the hand of human, like this cup, for example. So this is this anthropocentric idea what thing is. So they are like, let's say, wild things, because they are not depend to anybody. Is it clear, Kuba? To co mówię?
It is, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so it was very, very interesting. But I have a little bit of biological botanic knowledge, but of course I am not specialist. So I invited to collaboration, because this is Center for Living Things, the very serious research institute, So I invited to collaboration some biologists, and I also asked the botanical garden in Poznań, in Poland, the city where I studied and where I did my PhD. So I asked this botanical garden to collaboration, and they agreed. And then this adventure with Center for Living Things started. So maybe I can show you how it looked in botanical garden. Yeah, I started from this greenhouse. So I found in botanical garden in Poznań, the old greenhouse, like you see, without glass, not useful for scientists anymore. This is the part of, like, not official part of botanical garden. This is not open for public. This is more for scientists. So I asked, okay, maybe I can use it as the official site of Center for Living Things. And they agreed. So I started to collect things from these illegal wastelands and started to bring them to the botanical garden in Poznań. And I started to treat them as normally scientists treat collection in a botanical garden. So I put these descriptions. Here is one of the illegal wastelands next to my home. Anyway, so I started to make some descriptions about them. I started to looking for a new kind of classification for them, because, for example, if you have a moss on a styrofoam, that's not styrofoam, like here, yeah, this is very interesting object, because we have a styrofoam, but it looks as a rock or a stone. And then I asked the botanics to recognize this species, and the woman, the scientist which I collaborated with, checked using microscope, and she told me that in a classical kind of in the classical kind of classification, this moss typically living on rocks and stones. So I started to think, okay, so maybe we have to extend this classical classification of mosses, and asked that maybe this moss typically right now, nowadays, during Anthropocene, is living on styrofoams as well. So this is like very interesting from both sides. Like from the one side, the moss started to treat a rock, a styrofoam, as a stone. So decided that, okay, I can live on this styrofoam. This is similar. I think I can treat the styrofoam as a rock. But from the other hand, the styrofoam started to be like pseudo stone or something like a post stone. I don't know, like rock-like ground. Started to look as a rock. So this is very interesting from both sides, how these things started to behave in environment, and how non-human beings start to treat them. Because so I was very focused on this case of jak było sprawczość po angielsku? Agency, yes. So I was very focused on this case of agency of non-human beings. I mean plants, mosses, but also this waste, that they also acting somehow in the environment. So I started also to think about this kind of objects as the kind of new hybrids, like in between a habitat, a waste, a living being, that sometimes it's even not very obvious when you use even microscope. So here I made some pictures from my research when I checked with biologists under the microscope a part of polyester textile. So here you can see the part of the polyester textile, and here you can see a plant tissue. Komórka to jest cell, nie? Seal? Yeah, a seal of a plant. So yeah, so like a new layer is appearing here, and yeah, this is like a one kind of object right now. Object, or maybe not object, like one collective structure. Yeah, so let's back to this year I also published a book, the Atlas of Waste Plants, is both in Polish and English, and here you can find all research, all name of species, and all collection of objects I found. But let's back for a while to the botanical garden, because in my opinion, this is the most interesting part of the project. So in 2000, from 2018, I also, even from the very beginning, I think, I proposed in the botanical garden that, in my opinion, the best way to show the collection of Center for Living Things will be the new department at the botanical garden, officially open for public and dedicated to this kind of post-waste environments. So I offered them that here is the collection I made from these all hybrids I found, and we can show them to public, because in my opinion, this is very important nowadays, in the middle of Anthropocene, to show people what is exactly nature, how nature looks, what is the nature, if it's even makes sense to call it nature, like what is exactly when we think about it. So this is not only this kind of romantic vision of untouched landscape, but this is indeed the real nature that we can see everywhere around us. Is this very complicated, multi-layer structure, toxic, changed by industry, changed by people, by corporations, by waste overproduction. And in my opinion, the most important thing is to look how is to rethink this myth of untouched romantic nature. So this is the reason that I am very focused on post-industrial toxic environments, because inside these kind of habitats, you can see new kind of relations, and you can also see the real agency of non-human beings who can try, adapt, act with this. And this is like my point of view, which is very next to dark ecology, like Timothy Morton or something like this. So yeah, so I think in every botanical garden should be one department dedicated to this post-waste environments, or maybe also post-coal habitats, like, you know, that kind of habitats, the ruderal plants, the pioneer species who can adapt and create something new on damaged land. This is, I think, very important, so we can maybe learn somehow from these non-human beings and maybe, you know, try to be more like them. Like, so yeah, so I created this this department in 2019 finally, because it was very, you know, difficult discussion with scientists from botanical garden, because they treat me more as an artist who came, and she's a little bit strange, but she makes nice pictures, and she would like to make an exhibition here to show her sculptures. Yeah, it was like more like this. So it was long process and discussion for me, when finally scientists started to think more serious about this project. And also finally, some of them even found some interesting topics inside my research. So this was very, for me, wow, that, you know, but very difficult, long process. So finally, I create this new department. So here is like names of different places at the botanical garden, and here is Center for Living Things, the Department of Waste Plants. Yeah, and so for me it was I cannot change it. Oh no, not this one. Okay, dobra. Nie, bo mi się coś zniknęło. So I made some, like, no, like in botanical garden, it's also like mission, or like the mission of botanical garden is education for big public, like for children, for schools, etc. So I made also this exhibition in a way like normally, not exhibition, sorry, this department. In a way that normally in botanical garden they do it. And I made some walks with people, some workshops for children. So it was very like dedicated to large public outside of the art bubble. I don't know, maybe Kuba would like to add something to this part? Because I'm talking and talking and
yeah. Thank you. No, I think it just might be important just to mention how, but you already said it sort of, know how this very scientific like methodology kind of informs us about the themes of survival or like kind of resilience, and how the human can actually learn from the unhuman. And you said how it's an important lesson to make, and I think it's very relevant because it also kind of shows us visually, but also kind of theoretically, it confronts us with the landscape after human in a way, right? Because we're seeing these objects that are left alone. So something that is it's coming from the past or it's coming from today, but we can also imagine that the world in a couple of years, like in 50 years, it would be like a similar situation, right? Because it's hypothetically, it can also be like a deserted landscape without non-human, without human beings. And then everything that human culture has produced in order to serve as a tool, as an instrument, as something in particular, then it's being reappropriated by nature, right? So I think it's really interesting how also this project can be told in regard to different temporalities in a way, right? So it tells a story about the present, but it can also tell a story about the future, the near future, but also kind of hypothetical future when the human race is extinct also in a way. I mean, this is might be much more speculative, but visually this is what those works are doing also. And obviously the other two interesting things that I think might be important to point out here is that obviously this is about negotiating the notions of man-made culture and nature, right? So culture, which is considered something that is man-made, and then nature, so something that is that is outside of the realm of the humans. And I think this clearly shows how you work with those two terms, or actually with the weird space in between the two, or the weird space in which the two can coexist together.
Yeah,
and,
this is like weird meeting in between. So when I started, this is very important that you mentioned about it, because I forgot about it. But it was also my idea when I started this project, because for me it was very also exciting that here you cannot easily divide what is nature and culture inside this kind of object. It's not possible anymore. And then you can have more strange questions. For example, what when I find in a forest, let's say, electronic waste, but on the surface of this waste there is already a rare species from the red list that appeared on it. So what then? Is okay to just take it and throw it, away to the official landfill, or it should stay because there is already the species of moss from the red list? Like sometimes it's also like they even don't fit to our norms, like our this binary divisions, like nature, culture, good, bad, toxic, not toxic, because they are very like in between, and it's like a continuum.
Yeah, and I think this is like really, I mean, of course, artistically, it's a fantastic project, but it also, I think, is very useful, kind of as a tool for discussing theory, right? In a way, you have so much theory speaking about the kind of blurred division between the nature and culture, or kind of the need to renegotiate this division, right? Or kind of continuous attempt to drop the binary divisions, right? But this is like a really discussion that has been happening in humanities, right? If you think about Bruno Latour and like Royce Braidotti and all this kind of post-humanists, also philosophers and writers, and then of course you can go through so many pages in theory and kind of conceptualize it, but this is kind of a really case study which allows many people, I think, to kind of really relate to it on a very simple level, also like a very intuitive level, right? So you can actually have a sense of like, what does it mean for one thing is to be both nature and culture, right? And how this is not impossible in the world that we live now, that is so intoxicated, that it's so complex, that it's so intertwined, to divide between one and the other. And also here, I guess it's very important to mention that this project also has been part of the exhibition that was organized in Rome at in the
Yeah. This is
Pasticcio
exactly from
Ferrara.
Rome.
So we will maybe go back to this exhibition later on when we discuss other what was in the
Yeah.
basement, maybe just mention
Okay.
briefly. But yeah,
This is from Rome. This picture, this is a view from our show in Rome. Yeah.
And it was generously supported by the Polish Institute in Rome. So thank you, Anya,
Thank
for
you.
organizing this wonderful exhibition that took place.
It was in the foundation Pasticcio
Pasticcio Ferrara, right?
Yeah. I show a little some views from different exhibitions because I was talking about botanical garden, but of course this project is also you can also see it in the galleries. So I construct some kind of museal cases, like museal vitrines, with watering system inside to show also this object inside the white cubes, inside galleries, museums. Yeah. So then sometimes they look as sculptures as well. Like this is also very interesting point, like this, I don't know, non-human aesthetic, or like I just found it, it's like found objects. But this is also the case of conservation in art, that it's not possible to make a conservation of them because they are still in the process, like they still change. One kind of moss appear, another disappear. When usually I keep them outside in a garden, but so they're changing every year, so they are still in a process. So this is also interesting, that it's a kind of art that you cannot control. Like, no. Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, I'm wondering if we should jump in and to briefly speak about the other project, the Slackberry Slack Heap, because we do have time, right, Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So and just to maybe just to comment on what you said and also introduce this project. I think it's interesting how when you were discussing the botanical garden, it already kind of tells how your projects are about exactly negotiating certain things, not only inside the artwork, but negotiating with the art institution. And I think this is really interesting how it's about kind of getting out of the white cube, getting out of the art space basically, and going somewhere further, and creating kind of prototypes, I would say, right? So like prototype is actually a term that we are using a lot in Muzeum Sztuki, as a term that is actually coming from the language of the first historical avant-garde in the 1920s. But I think, Diana, what you are doing is also very much playing with this notion of the prototype, right? So that you're creating something or conceptualizing something in the realm of your art practice, something that can be used later on, or it's a proposal for something to check if maybe this solution could work. And in this way, it's both artistic practice, but it's also kind of experimental social practice, or an activist practice, or just a practice in which all those terms are not relevant anymore because it's just a practice. So also this project Slack Heap is a it's both, right? So it's an artistic proposal, but it's also a proposal that can really initiate a certain discussion among local citizens, but also politicians, activists, and so on.
Yeah. Should I tell something about it?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
If you could, that would be great.
Okay. So yes, so this is project I made in 2018, and it was presented first time during the exhibition The Most Beautiful Catastrophe in Bytom, where Kuba invited me. So the first idea was to show Center for Living Things, but then I started to do the Siberia Slack heap, and we started to talk about it with Kuba, and Kuba proposed me that, okay, this is super to also, yeah, it was like this, to add it to this show. And for me, it was also very important to show it, exactly this project during the climate conference time, because this project is really connected and dedicated to one coal region in Poland, Konin coal basin, which is very damaged by this coal industry. So and it's not really in 2000, maybe later this one. In 2018, the topic of environmental catastrophe that happened in that region wasn't very popular. There was almost nothing in media about it. So it was very important to, you know, to add this topic to the official climate conference, because they didn't place in agenda nothing about that region. So I decided, okay, so maybe I can come there and show this project, but I need to first maybe explain the main idea. So the main idea of the project is basically create a local new kind of eco brand, like little local cooperation, tak? Spółdzielnia?
Cooperative. Yeah.
Cooperative. Dedicated to this fruit you can see here. These yellow little berries, they are sea berry, let's see backhorn. The plant that normally live next to seaside, on sand, and this is not very common in Poland. You can, like, let's say, natural habitats for this kind of plant are only next to the seaside. But this region is in the middle of Poland, and this kind of plant is completely not typical. So why this plant appeared there is because the coal company, the owner of the big amount of land in that area, decided to put this kind of fruit, this kind of plant, as recultivation after the coal exploitation was closed. To było zrozumiałe?
Tak.
Yeah. Because there is like open pit industry, so they built huge holes in the ground. They usually threw away all water from the ground. So
Non è che in WhatsApp, cercando il registro perché purtroppo prima Giorgio mi strada
co się
e
stało?
mi ha detto che la prof ci ha dato.
Per favore, spengete l'audio. please stop the audio? Who is not speaking should close the audio. Thank you.
Okay. So this kind of industry made very big environmental problem, because for the first point is that natural water resources as lakes and rivers started to disappear. Forests started to dry out. Farmers lost their plants because the drought that happened after this open pit was built. So after the exploitation, the ground around, like even 50 kilometers around the open pit, is damaged. And it's not possible to grow anything there. So the coal company is obligated to do recultivation process, but of course it's very long-term process. And the easiest way for this is to plant very strong pioneer plants, as exactly seaberry is, to start this process of cultivation. So this plant is, for me, a symbol of apocalypse. Like, it's very post-apocalyptic plant for that region, because the region is full about this plant. But it's not, let's say, natural for that environment. It's because the environmental catastrophe was there, and not a lot of kind of plants can grow on this poor, very damaged land. So from the one hand, this landscape, which is full of this Beckhorn seaberry plant, is like a very post-apocalyptic landscape. But from the other hand, this kind of fruit in some countries is very trendy eco-food. For example, when I prepared my show for Riboka Biennale in Latvia, also in 2018, I realized that there is very big trend for these sea berry juices. So in every restaurant, they had a lot of these kind of juices, a special tea, a special kind of alcohol with this, sweets with this, everything. So when I came back to Poland, and I went to first climate camp and big protest to Konin, and I saw this kind of fruit there, something, clicked in my mind, and I decided to, okay, so maybe let's do juices from these fruits. So I met some local activists there during our protest, and I started to talk with them, and we decided, I invited some people to pick up some fruits together, like very independently. It was area still depends to coal company, so I don't know even if it couldn't be official. But we went there, we took these fruits together, and then these juices appeared. We made it, and then I made these labels. So I designed logo, and also made some pictures for labels, because of course every eco brand should have good design. And I also created this stand, and this is a view for the exhibition, The Most Beautiful Catastrophe. So from the one hand, it's a like art installation, but in the shape of promotional stand of the eco brand Siberi Slack Heap. The name of this project is Siberi Slack Heap, and there was possibility, because it was before pandemic, so there was possibility to drink this juice together, to sit there, but also to show some videos from research, to also see some another special series of juices I made from apples, pears, peaches, plums. I found next to abandoned houses, like you can see here. These houses are abandoned because coal industry also to build a hole in the ground to this open pit mining. They have to damage from 10 to even 15 villages to make one open pit mine. So yeah, so here I picked up some fruits from empty villages, already displaced. Dobrze mówię? Displaced? Yeah. And these juices are the last physical thing that left from these villages, because these houses are not exist anymore. There is a hole in the ground. There is nothing there anymore. So it was like a special also addition of juices. And I also started to think how to rebrand the region, that maybe we can call this region not Coal Basin, but Siberi Basin. So there was also a quote that let's make Siberi Basin not Coal Basin anymore. You know, like maybe this kind of, you know, picking fruits, make juices, you know, make juices not coal. That maybe is it's a good also idea for a regional product. I think this is really interesting, because in this product you can find the history of the region, which is very like of course there is of course very big important heritage connected with this coal industry, and in this fruit is also this context, but from the other hand is quite post-apocalyptical. But from the third side, maybe there is a hope for a future in this fruit, because this is the plant who could adapt and who can grow there and create new environment. So this is very complex, and there is a lot of contexts inside this one fruit. So for me, it was like, wow, this is the symbol for this region. This is perfect symbol for this region. And yes, and during this exhibition that Kuba curated, I also made one stand, like a little stand of Siberi Slack Heap next to COP climate conference in Katowice. And also I started to offer these juices to people. And it was, of course, also a pretext to talk about this disaster that happened in Konin Coal Basin. And I even took some juices inside the climate conference. So you can see here one picture. So it was very exciting moment. Okay, Kuba, I don't know, maybe I forgot about something. Maybe you can add something.
No, I think it's great, and I think that we have such a good kind of dialogue here, because you've been saying about the Center for Living Things, and here the situation is both very similar and very different. So I mean, it's still kind of focusing on a certain plant or certain plants in plural, and kind of being able to read the very complex situation of the environment, but also of the history and of the future through the close reading of the non-human, right, of the plant or of the seaberry, of a certain kind of species. So I think it's a very interesting to look at those projects in dialogue, actually, as we're doing now. But then the discussion, and both of them are kind of trying to negotiate outside of the art field, right? So, but the first one would be discussing with the scientists, right? So trying to convince the scientists in order to broaden their anthropocentric perspective and to look at the relations between the human and plants somehow differently, and to really influence how the scientific world in Poznań, in that case, but also it can be general functions. And this is a project that is more focused on the activist side, right? So it's really part of your practice that is focused on activism. So that it's closer to, let's say, local communities and really people who are affected, rather than the kind of theoretical discussion. So I think this really shows us the let's say at least two sides of your practice. One is, let's say, the scientific and the activist, but of course everything that you do connects the two, and then there is art in between, and I think this is what really makes it interesting. But I'm wondering if we should, because I have also so many other questions to Diana, and we could be speaking for hours, but maybe we can open it up also, and have like a if there any questions at this point, maybe we can open it up, or we can just continue kind of elaborating in different ways after this.
Thank you, Kuba. Thank you, Diana. It was really highly interesting what you said just now, Kuba, Jakub. It was just what I was thinking. We said before that one of the main points of Diana's production is the encounter between art and science, but the same important is the encounter, the meeting between art and activism, because I fear that without political activism, ecologists could be only a regressive movement, but it can be also in another way, as Diana shows us. And I would like to speak about another oeuvre of Diana. I show you the book. Of course, you know it, but the other participants do not. And it's this new archaeology for Liban and Płaszów. It's a very interesting research made by Diana in the ground of a former concentration camp near Krakow. And this is very much in connection with your other work, because okay, we are speaking here about landscape, about earth, about the place we are living, and the Polish landscape is quite particular in it, as Luisa Nader said, commenting the recent exhibit by Willem Sasnal. She said it's not possible to speak about Polish landscape without violence. And here in your work, we have several kinds of violence: the violence of capitalism, the violence of the destruction of the environment, and the violence of war, the violence of blood, the violence of mass graves, and so on and so on. So if you would like to add something, that this work of you is connected to this always more important current of environmental history of the Holocaust. And well, please, I would like you just to comment on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I can show you. I will Google it. This place, how it looks, because I think this is important to see it. Yeah, I will share a screen. Yeah. So this is the place where I made this project. So here is like also this is also an open pit to collect stones, like special kind of stone for buildings. I don't know how to translate skała wapienna, so yeah, but you know, this kind of white rock that is very useful in building industry, let's say. So this
limestone. Oh, that's limestone.
Okay, so this quarry was opened before the Second War, and the name of the owner, the previous owner, the first owner of this quarry was Liban. So we call it Liban's quarry because the name of this first owner from the before the war, and he was Jew, and he was killed during Second War. And during the Second War, Nazis created work camp next to this place, and later it was also concentration camp. And here inside this quarry, you can see these all prisoners worked. And this is also important place. It's like in the middle of Krakow. So maybe it's not visible here, but on a map, you can see that around this place, there is a lot of buildings. It's like exactly in the middle of city. And yeah, and it stays empty nowadays. And also the important story connected with this place is that the famous movie Schindler's List was made there, and some part of scenography from this movie is still there. They left some part of scenography. So this was also very interesting for me, that there is nothing, almost nothing left from the real original, like came from the Second War, but you can still find some Hollywood scenography. And many people, because there is, in 2017, when I created this project, there was no information about it. So many people was sure that what they can see is from the, from this original camp. I also put one plot in the book about it. But what was the most interesting for me personally is that the really big biodiversity and really complex environment appeared inside this quarry because people didn't use it. So this nature back and recreate this area. And right now, this is very important area for botanics, for ornithologists, for scientists, for geologists. So this is very important place because it's connected with the history But from the other hand, it's also very important place for many different kind of animals and even rare species. So in this book and in the project New Archaeology for Liban and Płaszów, I tried to make like this complex multi-layer research. Sorry? Co się stało?
Jakiś pogłos,
Okay.
but I think it's fine.
Okay, I made this, I tried to show this complex structure of this place and also show the people history from this place as a part of bigger context of the deep history, geological storyline, let's say. And I also put there some, in the book, some contemporary objects I found inside, around this, at this area. So yeah, so I found some book, but this book is from communist time in Poland. This is very important. Encyclopedia, everybody had it because it was only one available in Poland that time. So I found some like some objects, you know, it's that they are like waste that people left there during years. So I found, for example, this encyclopedia, which is coming from 70s, some one postcard, which is also coming from 80s or something like maybe 90s, I don't remember, but also contemporary fossil, like this apple charger, some building materials. You can see this, you can see my website right now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, some building materials that I took these photographs in a way to make them more similar to rocks. And I also compare my found objects together with objects from the collection of Geological Museum in Krakow. So they are like connected. These contemporary fossils, also the part of Schindler List stenography that is look really like it could be from wartime, because it is written, you know, so you cannot easily say that okay, it's from 90s, or maybe, but maybe it's from the time of Second War. So it was all like very, I don't know, a very complex storytelling. But there was nothing, like no object exactly from the time of war. Like mostly contemporary objects I found there. And I used this method, like some archaeologists who make research around Holocaust use this method, that they take things from the ground, because it's not possible and it's not okay to, you know, jak to powiedzieć, że nie mogą kopać, bo to jakby dla community żydowskiego nie jest w porządku. Więc stosują taką metodę, że zdejmują jakby z wierzchu, żeby właśnie nie przekopywać bo kości jakby, żeby nie naruszać.
So it's just about doing the research on the surface and not digging deep underneath, right? So then the apparently if there are any human remains, they're not.
Yeah. So I didn't know about this. I didn't know that archaeologists use this method, and I started like from the beginning. It was only an intuition to just take from the ground because I usually collect things. So found objects are my medium as well. But I was very surprised about new kind of contexts that appeared when I put them together. Yeah, and especially in the context of this special traumatic landscape.
Thank you. Thank you. I have another question, then I leave the word to the others. And that is very theoretical. Your work is, as we could say, nearly all contemporary art is also about memory. Yeah? And I just read this very, very nice definition of the 70s by Geoffrey Bennington. He would say that the characteristic, one of the characteristics of the postmodern mentality, which has led to the new discovery of memory, so to say, is the nostalgia for the future and expectation from the past. So we are always really expecting that the discovery of the past, or the new interpretation of the past could give us something new. Why we are longing for the future, because this future, okay, I don't want to comment on it, but I would like you to comment on this, and if you see yourself in this definition.
Czyli, że
Nostalgia na przyszłość i oczekiwania na przeszłość.
ciekawe. Okay. Yeah, maybe if I can understand it right. Of course, what I do in my projects when I touch something from the past, I'm looking for some new interpretation, exactly, some new context, and also this process, like, because everything is connected, like even the call. Maybe I can show a picture from exhibition room, which is from the plant, also the plant tissue, the part of plant bodies, but from the years ago. And when people started to burn it, the new climate change appeared, because this plant died because the climate change, but millions years ago. And when industrial era came, and fossil fuels started to be burned, the new climate change appeared, and new mass extinction of species appeared. So I think for me, the most interesting is this very deep connection in between different, even geological eras, and the past and the future. Like, I'm looking for these connections, and then there is maybe also some advices for a future. But I always try to change the perspective somehow, go outside from this I don't know, anthropocentric approach, to see even this timeline from different perspectives. Oh, nie wiem, czy to była odpowiedź.
Thank you, Diana. So are there any questions from the audience? If there aren't, Diana, very last thing, would you show us just a second your homepage?
Yeah.
See many illustration from it, but just show us how it's done, because it's quite nice, as I said before.
Yeah, this is my website, and it's not fully updated, but yeah, I didn't put my newest projects here, but you can see some of them, and yeah, you can check.
Click on the pictures. Please do it on one, the one you like, because I just want to show how it works. And then you see this very, very, very brief, very clear explanations, and well, may be useful for everybody.
Yeah.
This is always the stuff from Białystok, eh?
Yeah.
Galeria. Oh, it's unbelievable.
This is from Białystok. This is from Rome as well.
Mm-hmm.
This was the installation in the basement.
Mm. Yeah. This was quite
And
amazing.
This is about birds. This is about birds. Yeah.
Oh, this is the new project on animals, huh?
This is not the newest one. This is from 2019.
Okay.
This is photo installation. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like with the kind of light, like in Caravaggio paintings, like in Baroque paintings.
Mhm. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any questions, you see at the very end, we are now 17, so quite a lot. But
yeah,
well, I think if there aren't any questions, we may say thanks, many thanks to Diana and to Jakub. It was brilliant, and hope to see you soon in Rome or in Genoa.
Yeah, in Rome will be great.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Diana. And you know, I know your work, but nevertheless, I'm always impressed by the quality, but also by the amount of work you actually, you know, got to do, and how it's a deep research actually in all of them. And it's interesting just to maybe comment on the exchange that you had with Clara about the temporalities. I think it's like a reoccurring theme in this conversation, right? Like how time works in your project. And I think this might be something to really think about in the future also, right? So how on the one hand we have this different timeline, but then we don't have a timeline, right? Because our minds, they just don't really work with chronologies, right? We're like in one space, in one time and space, and then we're everywhere and all the time, all the, you know, every day basically. So it's really interesting how your projects kind of illustrate that as well, as being in the Anthropocene, but as also being somewhere in the deep history, and as being in the future, like how it's really intertwined, and all these chronologies are somehow mixed up together. And when Laura, when you said that you brought up that project of Diana in Krakow, where there is this Holocaust history theme, and Diana, you said that it's so interesting because you have so many different temporalities there, but there is not a single object coming from the Second World War. And I think this is almost symbolic in a way that, you know, dealing with the Holocaust is all about dealing with the absence, with the lack of, with something that is missing. Yeah. So in that way, again, something that is missing might be more important than something that is actually there, because something that is there, it's like a simulacrum, it's fake, you know, it's a set design, and it's not the real thing. So So it's also, you know, whether we're speaking about things that are there or the things that are not there, but you know, your project kind of points to something that should be there. It's both the artistic and also the theoretical part that I think is really amazing and elaborated. So I'm very thankful for this conversation, because it also has opened up some fascinating new directions that maybe we can continue in our conversation in the future.
Thank you, Kuba, and thank you, Laura, for invitation.
Thank you.
And it was very, very nice to be with you today and talk about projects. So,
And yeah, thank you everyone for bearing
for
with us,
coming.
and and have a good week then.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Ciao. Do widzenia. Ciao.